Greetings.
Hello, and welcome to Hearthaholics Episode 1. This is the #1 Hearthstone podcast in the world, as judged by everyone with good opinions. I'm your host, Bryan, and joining me today are the two foremost experts on Hearthstone who really need no introduction, but I'm going to be introducing them anyway. One is Andres. Hello, Andres. How are you doing?
Hey, Bryan. Wow, that sounded like super convincing. I like that intro.
know.
Like for a second, I believe you. I was like, really? Man, I'm in the best Hearthstone podcast ever.
So I've heard the idea that confidence is a fake it until you make it sort of thing. So I figure if I just open that way, we're going to be super successful.
I like it.
And you know who else I like? Billy. Hello, Billy.
Hello, my name is Billy. I'm from Australia, and I do things on the internet that people genuinely enjoy. So.
Wow, and I was like going to have you introduce yourself later, but you got to it right away.
Straight into it, man.
Billy's wasting no time.
Nah, man, we got to talk about cards. That's what we're here about.
I appreciate the enthusiasm, but for those of us that are a little bit slower, I'm going to let them do a little bit of an introduction here so people actually know who they are. If we want to take the card game analogy way too long, this is like the flavor text for our hosts.
Oh, nice.
So, Andres, what's up with you? Who are you?
Hey, my name is Andres, and I love Hearthstone. I've been playing it for over a year. I've done some writing for ESL. I've never played competitively, but I've reached Legend a couple of times. Yeah, aside from that, just a lover of this game.
Awesome. Yes, you are excellent at this game, and I have had a lot of fun playing and learning about it with you. So very happy to have you on the show.
I'm glad you have.
And Billy, you already gave your introduction, so I guess you really have nothing more to say on the matter.
No, all the things that I said before. Australian, love this game. Yeah.
I like that you just get the Australian thing out of the way, because you know we're going to get emails and stuff saying, where's he from? Is he English?
Because people get confused. People get confused. People always go to the English thing, right? It's never Australian. It's either English or Irish or something. And I'm just like, no, Australian.
I thought you were English the first time I met you, but yeah, you do have that English accent in you.
This is what I mean. All the time. Never have I once, by an American or anybody outside of Australia, been assumed that I'm Australian. Always the first thing they go to is English.
I actually can't remember if I assumed you were Australian when I first heard you, but I think it's safe to assume I thought you were English.
Probably.
And I am Bryan. Nothing too interesting about me. I like Hearthstone. I like the podcast, so I thought Hearthstone podcast is a pretty good idea. But yeah, been a big fan of Blizzard games for a long time.
Nothing interesting about you. You've been podcasting for like 10 years, something like that.
Yeah, I've been podcasting for, I don't know, like 6 years, but I've been doing it since I was like 16, so.
And you're like the mastermind behind all this. Like,
this is true. My plot for world domination starts with Hearthaholics. But yeah, I'm just a huge fan of Blizzard games, and Hearthstone was the most recent one to completely capture my heart. Actually, I need to change that. Heroes of the Storm is the most recent one to completely capture my heart. But this isn't a Heroes of the Storm podcast. This is a Hearthstone podcast. But yeah, so I am very excited to be able to talk about Hearthstone more with some people, and
yeah, man.
Let's go ahead and do that. So guys,
let's go for it.
People are pretty excited about something specific in Hearthstone right now.
Next round.
Can any of you name what that is? Yes, exactly. No, it's GVG. Wait, I think we're both wrong. Andres, what are people actually excited about?
Blackrock Mountain. Let's get it together.
All right. It's the dragon one, right?
Yeah.
Is that the dragon one or the undead one?
Finally.
Is it the Death Rattle expansion?
I think it might be the Worgen one.
That's good. More Worgen infiltrators.
Exactly. So, as of recording this episode, Blackrock Mountain, the first wing, Blackrock Depths, was released yesterday. So we've had... Wait, was it yesterday? Yeah, I'm losing track of my days already. Yeah, so we've had about a day to be doing stuff in it. So what have you all been up to so far? Like, Andres, how have you been spending your little bit of time with Blackrock Depths so far?
I dug straight into it I kind of wanted to keep up with the wings this time because last time I kind of like did all the normal modes and then procrastinated on the heroics and then I kind of never finished them.
Yep.
So on this one, I
Same
kind of want to
exactly
stay on top
here.
of it, and as the wing comes out, I just want to finish the whole like normal, heroic, and the challenges. Thankfully, I had some free time yesterday, and I was able to go through the whole wing, all the heroics. I had a blast just coming up with decks and like all those crazy strategies that came out.
Right. So is it just me, or are these boss designs like a lot more fun than Naxxramas's were? I enjoyed Naxxramas a lot, but these just like everyone was just a ton
you know,
of fun
I
for me
agree
to
with
beat.
that. I think they really like capitalize on the fact that players want to see like crazy stuff going on, like all these legendaries that never get played, and like just crazy scenarios in general. I think they made that on purpose.
Yeah, it feels like you're getting a different experience than what you get in when you're playing ranked. It feels like they went into it saying, "How can we make as many crazy
Yeah.
game stories come out of each of these as
And
possible?"
as the game has been out for a
Um,
while, I feel like they need to like up their game in like the impressive factor, right? They've already done
Right.
like kind of like the vanilla stuff, like introducing new cars in a very like gentle way. Now they're losing the fear to kind of like, you know what? Let's just go all out. For example, in we can go and talk about this later, but in like the change to I'm talking about the one that deals 2 damage and summons a random minion, a random demon.
Oh, Bane of Doom.
Bane
Oh,
of Doom.
yeah,
Ah,
Bane of
Jesus,
Doom.
finally. Yeah, I've never played that card. That's why I can't remember the name. But that card is insane now.
So, okay, something that confuses me about Bane of Doom is like the grammar here. Is it saying your Bane is something made of Doom, or Doom, or Doom is the Bane, or this is the Bane of Doom itself? Like, what could be the Bane of Doom?
That's it. That's an interesting name now that
It
you
boggles
say
my
it.
mind.
It's just, I guess,
It
like,
kind of feels like they just took.
is the worst kind of
Let's
Doom?
just take scary words and link them together and make something, and it's a Warlock card.
Listen, card design, Bane of Doom.
Blood of
I don't know,
Apocalypse is like what we're getting next.
there you
But
go.
anyway, yes, you're making a point about.
But yeah,
Bane of Doom.
just basically that they're like losing their fear, right? This is the first time that they actually buff a card ever.
Oh, well.
Yeah, Bane of
that's an
Doom
interesting
is
point.
definitely been buffed. It's still not very good, in my opinion. Obviously, it can be used with certain dream scenarios, but I mean, You're right. It's the first time that they've come out of their shell and decided, all right, we're actually going to buff a card here. Although
Wait,
I
so
don't
have
really
they
think
never-
it's necessarily buffing because all it's doing is updating it, right?
Well,
Like,
yeah,
it's
an
just
update,
doing what the card actually says.
but it's a buff.
The card says deal 2 damage to a character. If that kills it, summon a random demon. Now, as of like a week ago, what it should have read was deal 2 damage to a character, and if it kills it, summon in a random demon from the class from the what was it? It was the basic set, right? So
Not even
Oh,
because
yeah.
not all
It
the demons in the
was-
basic set were included.
Yeah, no Illidan, right?
no,
I
all the
think
ones
none
from the
of the
basic
big
set were
ones.
included.
No, Doomguard and Fire.
No.
I mean, yeah, Doomguard and the big ones were not.
They're from the classic set. They're cards you can open. I'm
Oh, we're
talking
saying basic as
set,
in
in
non-expert.
Oh,
yes,
I see
soul
what- I
deck
see what you
style.
mean.
Basic.
It could only summon in stuff like Dread Infernals, stuff that didn't come from pack, stuff you unlocked through leveling.
Right.
I see.
So, yeah, it's kind of an interesting question of if you'd count this as a buff, because if you look at like the Warsong Commander, it technically got a buff with this patch as well, because it's the card that used to give charge to everything with 3 or less attack. But what was the problem? Was it not giving the charge to things that were like summoned?
Yeah, like for example,
only
if you had
played?
a hunted creeper in the game or a harvest golem, and you killed the golem, and the little minion came out, the 2/1, he was supposed to get charge, but he wasn't. Any summons from like creatures like that from death rattles.
Gotcha. So, I guess that would be a buff as well. But yeah, Billy, I'm kind of with you in that I see it more as like changing the card to work as it was originally intended.
Yeah,
more than
although
anything
I don't
else.
think
It's
for
kinda
Bane
like a
of Doom
bug
it was
fix.
actually a bug. Like for the Warsong Command there, it was a bug from the beginning. They didn't intend. Bane of Doom, they actually intended it to be just a selected number of demons. But now they were like, you know what? Let's just throw all of them in.
Where does that information come from, though? Because the card text implies that's not the case. It's
Oh, you mean the fact
specifically-
that it was just basic?
I think it was a
Yeah,
while ago that they had
Andres
confirmed
is
that that's how
implying
they
that-
intended it to be. I need to find the source, but yeah, I
Oh.
think I remember reading some back in the day that that's how they intended the card to be. They didn't want it to be like the bigger demons.
Oh, I get it. So they're kind of trying to find a way to limit how powerful. what
Yeah,
you can get from
exactly.
it.
I trust you, Andres, but this is what the card is meant to do. I trust what they said, what you're saying they said, but I still believe that this is the way the card should be. It's still not very good. It's still not going to see play, but at least now the people that want to use it for fun can use it for fun.
That kind of makes me think, like, do you think it would be cool if Blizzard buffed cards more often? If, like, for example, is a card they're excited about doesn't see play, like, given that they nerf cards sometimes.
Yeah, I think
Leroy.
I think it'd be interesting because the truth is that when they created the game initially, they didn't know where it would end up, right? And as time goes by, they can see, what works and what doesn't. And I don't think there's no harm in like revisiting some cards in the future and like, updating them a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, again, it goes back to the eternal question people have of, are they going to start cycling cards out, or how are they going to handle the cards once there are a ton of them? Like, I feel like they're going to have to be fairly open to changing old cards at least a little bit if they're going to keep every single card in the rotation. Because at some point, some cards are either going to be broken either
At
in
some
the
point it's gonna
unplayable
get
or
like
overplayable way.
very, very big, right? There's gonna be like over 2,000 cards or more.
Yeah.
And like I don't know,
So we
they're
hope.
gonna have to address that at some point. I don't know if the way Magic the Gathering does it is the way to go though, just like cycling sets, because for
Mhm.
a digital game is not the same as a paper game, right? Like they almost have a need because they need to sell the paper copies of it.
Yeah, and it would just feel so bad suddenly being like, sorry, that Dr. Boom card, you can't use them anymore.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
oh, man. It would take such a feeling of ownership away from your card. So, I mean, I'm so dang curious to see what they're going to do with that. But we're probably a ways off from that. So, Billy, what have you been spending your time on with Blackrock Mountain?
So when Blackrock Mountain, it was announced to come out on the 2nd, as we all know, and usually that means at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon on the 2nd for me, because that's usually when everything comes out, because of
Right.
time zone differences. So they actually delayed it. Well, I don't know if it was necessarily a delay, but they didn't. Usually they bring stuff out as the daily quests come out, which, like I said, is at 5 o'clock.
Midnight. Yep.
For me, which is, like you said, midnight for majority of the world. And
Well, for me,
They-
it's actually 1 a.m. It's midnight for Pacific
for me,
Standard
it's
like
Time,
3 in the
which is
morning.
California.
you get my point. It's around that.
Yes.
It's late at night. And they delayed it. They said like it would be not at that normal time. And I ended up staying up till like 4 o'clock in the morning my time, and it still didn't come out.
gosh.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like 12 hours after it should have released. And then I went to sleep. And I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning 1 o'clock in the afternoon the next day and played Blackrock Mountain as soon as I got up. And the very first thing I saw was Grim Guzzler's hero power, put a minion from each deck into the battlefield. I'm like, oh my god, go back. Go into card collection, made a full legendary deck with insane cards in it, and destroyed him with, obviously this is just on normal, and I, destroyed him with whatever legendary popped out of the hero power. That was
Nice.
a lot of fun.
So showing how unused to adventurous I was, I forgot I could read his hero power before starting the match. So I'm just like, okay, I'll play a paladin. And I started doing it, and it's just like, oh, look at all these creatures that have battle cries that are getting thrown onto the battlefield.
Yep.
Eldor Peacekeeper, hype.
Exactly. Luckily, he eventually threw Tyrion onto the battlefield, and I won. But
There you go.
it was actually a little tough for a bit there. But yeah, so Billy, what are you thinking of it so far? Do you find it more fun than next, or how do you find it compares?
I agree with a lot of the points you guys mentioned, which were it does seem a lot more fun. I will say that the Dark Iron Arena, which is the second boss of this first wing, his hero power is kind of dull in comparison to
Agreed.
the other two, which is kind of disappointing. But maybe they could have made it a little bit more exciting. Maybe every time he uses it, it goes up in stats or something. I don't know. It just seems very, like I said, dull in comparison to the others. But it's still very enjoyable. The boss fight, and yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it just
Yeah, I agree with you. The hero power wasn't as exciting. I think the excitement for that one came from like all the crazy cards that he would play, right? Like Millhouse and Gruul, Mukla.
right. When I first versed
Oh my
him,
gosh.
he coined out Millhouse, and I was like, hold on a second. I conceded, backed out, and made a deck with like Pyroblast and stuff in it, just assuming that he would coin out Millhouse again, and he didn't. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, for me, I think when I faced the heroic version of that guy, like on turn 2, he had Lorewalker Cho and Mukla. So it's like, great. These bananas are not my favorite things to have in my hand right now.
Yep.
I can't remove this board.
That's so disappointing.
But yeah,
He always seemed to get
He's a
Pagel
pretty
and
good
Lord Walker Cho. I wonder if he had like 2 copies of each in the deck.
yeah, I wonder how much this guy needs. Like, I would love to see like the algorithms behind all these bosses and how if they ever like nudge crazy things to happen, or if they really just throw together a deck and have them play out. It's funny when you're facing these bosses. I'm just constantly like, misplay. Oh, you shouldn't have done that.
yeah, they always do that.
It was like the, what's its name? The Lost boss, Emperor. Whenever he attacks with his wife, and plays the Dark Iron Dwarf, he'll always attack with the wife first and then play Dark Iron Dwarf onto it instead of Dark Iron Dwarfing and then hitting, which is like crazy to me. Like how, like why, whatever.
I think that was an overlook. They might address that in the future because that is definitely an overlook.
Yeah, it's funny to me seeing that happen. It's like, what are you,
Something
rank 20?
Well, I mean, in non-heroic, he's kind of sub-rank 20 in terms of intelligence. These guys are not on their A game exactly.
Not exactly.
I have to wonder if they even finished the tutorial, but we'll never know. Something that these always make me sad about, though, is like when they play cards that then you never get, like that 4/8 that wins every brawl.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I want that for Warrior.
I didn't notice that, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was a cool card.
Yeah,
He always wins Brawl. That's his ability.
I want that card.
It's terrifying. It's like, I can't leave this guy up, but he has 8 health. So I don't quite know what I'm going to do about this guy, but it's a lot of fun overall. So, all right. So moving on from the boss encounters themselves, what did you guys think about the Clash challenges?
Oh my god, so fun. The Mage class challenge was insane. For mine, my first unstable portal was the summoning portal from the Warlock that reduces the cost.
Oh yeah.
And then from that point on, it was just insane. Like I just started getting like Alakir, Earth Elemental, Gallywix, all these like huge guys that I was playing for like 1 or 2 mana because of the reduced cost from the portal and from the summoning portal. That was pretty fun.
Yep, that actually does sound incredibly fun. For me, my first game had the my opponent on, I believe, turn 3 maybe, or turn 2 play out Millhouse. And I'm like, oh, wow, Millhouse Mana Storm. That means all of my spells are free. All of my 7 unstable portals.
Yeah, play out every unstable portal in your hand. That's crazy.
Exactly. That was a pleasant surprise. I think that they're especially where the Clash challenges are, where they can just go completely goofy.
Yeah.
They learned from the Web Spinner Clash challenge that everyone loved, that they're not even basing them around the cards are unlocking this time. They're just like, whatever.
Yeah, just have the most fun.
I wish you could play those modes with your friends. That would be so fun.
Oh my gosh! Every single game night I run would just have unstable portal tournament.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. That'd be so fun. Blizzard, please.
Please nerf. Wait, no, that's wrong.
No. Just please. No nerf. Just please.
So Billy, I've heard through the grapevine, aka you telling me, that you completed all the heroics.
Yeah, I just finished up the Emperor heroic. Trying to keep up track with it. I did the same thing in Next Realms. Every time one of the wings came up, I did the heroic within like a day of it releasing. And that's my plan this time. I really want to get that card back that looks super pretty. But the heroics weren't necessarily very difficult, which is kind of disappointing. Like the only one that gave me trouble was the Emperor. I was able to create my own decks on the other 2 very easily and beat them. And the Emperor one, I think, only took 3 attempts anyway. 2 attempts with my own deck, and then 1 attempt with someone else's deck. So, I don't know if the other wings are going to get more difficult, but these first heroics don't seem that difficult.
Yeah, these first few were not that difficult. The first 2 I got pretty much on my first try out of decks that I made. And then I had some trouble with Thracian. How do you pronounce it? I don't know how you pronounce it.
Thracian.
Thracian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I wasn't expecting the wife to be a 3/1 on the heroic version, and that kind of caught me off guard.
Oh, right. Yeah, because you can't see that in the hero power. And then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I need to actually tech for that. Yeah, I feel under a lot of peer pressure here to say that they're super easy and not a problem at all. Okay, so the first one I was able to beat my first try because I looked at it and I'm like, oh, I'll just throw a bunch of high-cost minions in my deck. And that ended up working out pretty well. But it was actually an incredibly fun game. It's not like I just won it without having to try because it just turned into this game where we both had this ridiculously developed board of high-cost minions. So it's just like, okay, do I trade my Gruul into his Mogre the Ogre before attacking with my tank with Divine Shield? Or do I just wait for Ragnaros to do it? And it's like,
that fight was super
fun. It's just
fun.
the type... Exactly.
What a lot of people did for that fight is they threw... The only 2 minions in the deck were Alakir and Kel'Thuzad, and they also ran Ancestral Spirit, so that you could Ancestral Spirit either Kel'Thuzad or Alakir, and then just keep hitting them in the face, and there's no way it's possible to lose.
Nice.
So that
that's...
that is the new Alexstrasza of winning.
Yeah, there you go.
You didn't test Alexstrasza, did you? Is she still not allowed?
I don't understand what you mean.
I think she's allowed this time. I think it was just not allowed for Lothib that had 100 life, so she would have dealt 85 damage or something like that.
Right. I think I could be wrong. I thought they actually went back into the old encounters and now has Kel'Thuzad say that's cheating and doesn't let you play Alexstrasza against them.
Yeah, I think that
could have
too,
been Lothib that it did it on. But I think actually, I remember a long time ago, it was suggested that they, use armor instead of health so that Alexstrasza isn't so powerful for the additional health on heroic bosses. And it sounds like that's kind of just what they did.
This time.
If I remember correctly, they have armor now. So it kind of skirts the Alexstrasza issue where she only does 15 health worth of damage at best.
Yeah, that's a good workaround.
That makes sense. Indeed. So... yeah, I have gotten one of the heroics down, and I still need to go back against the other 2. I tried a couple times against the arena with kind of like a tempo mage kind of strategy, and it worked okay, but I wasn't getting a lot of headway there. What did you end up beating that with, Andres?
I used a priest. I found, in the beginning, I was trying to use classes that could get rid of the little 1/1s easily, like rogue or druid. But then I found out that you can kind of just ignore those. Because the rest of the cards are not as scary. He doesn't play a lot of really big dudes. The biggest one is Fire Elemental. So with Priest, you could just kind of ignore those and just kind of heal yourself and then just do a big AoE and get rid of everything. And then you had, I used Vol'jin and Holy Fire to get rid of the elementals as well as the Power Word Death. And that seemed to work pretty well.
Right. Yeah, that's a pretty smart idea. Priest has a lot of cheap single minion removal, and then it also has those large board wipes that aren't available
and then
to everyone,
a key thing though is mind control
about
tech. You almost have to hope to get lucky in a mind control tech turn.
Yes.
Because he's constantly putting the little 1/1s. So if he plays Karen or something like that, you can just be or the Fire Elemental and steal it. You're golden.
Yep, I did. I actually started running a couple of those, and that they saved my bacon, though not all of it, because I did eventually lose anyway. I was so close, though. I was on the next turn, he had 4 health, and I would have had lethal, and then he got exact lethal on that same turn.
Oh, man, I hate when that happens.
This is unfair. This is cheating, but probably not, actually. But I like to think it was. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed the whole wing a lot. Something I appreciate a lot about how they do this content is it's a little bit like when a WoW expansion releases, in that the core gameplay for most people is the raiding, or in this case is playing on ladder. But it gives you a time to just kind of experience the world, get a lot of fun flavor across. My problem with that in WoW is that it takes 40 hours to get through it, and by the end you're kind of bored. Or in my case, by 3 hours in, I'm kind of bored.
Yeah, and you're kind of ready to get back on
things.
track on the gearing up and the serious business.
Exactly, but this I can complete in an hour or two, and it's really fun and it's really enjoyable. And then next week I can do it again, but it's not like some huge time sink to get through it and get the card. So I really appreciate like the pace of this.
I agree with you, and it's also a great way to like explore some of the story because you get like some of the flavor from Warcraft and the characters, and like you kind of get to know them a little more.
Right.
Different like environments in this world. It's a cool little venture.
Absolutely, I think and I still kind of like these few cards and seeing the impact of them and experimenting with them as opposed to the method of a whole expansion releasing and seeing what cards you get. I don't know, this kind of creates like a communal sense of it, like everyone's trying to figure out how these couple cards work, and then everyone's trying to figure out how these work, and it's a really fun experience.
It gives all the cards like a little spotlight, right? It gives them a chance to like get play tested and like see what they can do, instead of like when GVG hit, it was so many cards that not all the cards got the attention they deserved.
Right. And what was that, Billy?
I actually kind of don't like the order they're releasing these cards in. Like, for instance, we have, what do we have? We've got, right now we have Grim Patron, right? But we don't have the card that you also want in your Grim Patron deck, which is Axe Flinger, right? So...
Right.
And for instance, next week we're getting Blackwing Technician, but we still don't have a new dragon, right? And we won't have a new dragon until the following week, which is Dragon Consort. And even still, we won't have another dragon, which we want in that deck, which is Hungry Dragon. And that comes out the following week. So really, if you want to play with any dragon cards, you need to wait 4 weeks from now. And then if you want like Blackwing Corruptor, which is another core dragon card, for people that don't know, that's the 5-cost 5/4. If you're holding a dragon, deal 3 damage. That's a really core card for dragon decks. That's not until 5 weeks from now. So it's very frustrating to me that they can't release at least some of the cards that have synergy with each other in the same week. It's very...
Yeah,
I don't
when
want
I
to say
actually
frustrating because I still enjoy the game, but there's another word there that I don't have in my mind right now. That
I think frustrating fits, but frustrating isn't an on or off thing either. I am frustrated with this game, or I am not. Like, you could be enjoying the game while having problems with specific things they're doing. And I kind of agree with you on this. Like, the order, I would be very curious what factors they're using to determine the order of cards, because I can't really see. I mean, apart from like, making sure all the class cards are for different classes. I can't see a particular like method to their madness.
There has to be a reasoning behind it though, because I doubt like they just pull it out of a hat and they're like, okay, guys, this is what's coming out this week.
Right.
Maybe it's on purpose. Really they want to wait. They want to hold down like the complete dragon deck right till the end. Is like the culmination of the expansion. That's when you can create a full dragon deck in its fullest splendor or something.
Right. I think that'll be a really interesting question to ask Ben Brode when he inevitably becomes a co-host of our podcast.
Oh, yeah. You announced that was happening, right? Later this year?
Yeah. I figured I would wait till the end of the show.
You're still negotiating, right?
Exactly. Of course. We might have to just get Will Brode instead, but we're hoping. We're hoping to snag him. But yeah, now that we're talking about the cards, let's go ahead and just run through these here and say what we think about them so far. First up is Grim Patron. That is a 5-cost card. It is a 3-attack, 3-health minion, and it reads, whenever this minion survives damage, summon another Grim Patron. Also, for people who play Arena, the rarity is rare. Any thoughts on this card so far? I can go ahead and say I thought about it a lot before I played the game, but I have not yet played a deck with it in it.
You go first.
I loved the idea of this card. I loved the idea of this card when it was first announced, but upon playing it, and I haven't played a lot of it. I've probably played like 3 games with the Grim Patron deck, and it's hard to say because like the deck itself isn't the exact way we want it yet, because obviously we want Axe Flinger and we probably want Revenge, and we want all these different cards that we can't currently run.
Yep.
So it's very hard to judge the card as of right now, and people are already saying it's good. So I would imagine that once we do have all these cards, it's going to be a solid card. But the question is whether it's better than running like Control Warrior, which is obviously the deck you want to be running Grim Patron in. And I'm not sure, at least from a competitive standpoint, that Grim Patron the Grim Patron deck is better than Control Warrior.
I just love the image of a Grim Patron warrior fighting a Control Warrior. Grim Patrons all coming out, and then the Control Warrior playing Brawl. And of course, them all getting in a bar fight. Like, that's just the natural end to this deck. Your deck cannot compose itself. But yeah, I mean, like, flavor-wise, this card gets A++ from me. I forget the exact quote, but when he's just like, get in here, and another one jumps into the ring, and they just keep populating.
It works really well.
Yeah, it is just like, what a genius way to tie in those annoying Grim Patrons from the dungeon into how Hearthstone plays.
Grim Patron, the flavor of this card is amazing, and I like the idea of the card. I'm just not sure how strong it's gonna be. Also, it's just, I love the flavor of this card. It's really
I found that when you can give it haste, you can do so many things. Especially if your opponent has a board, you can just do like insane turns where you just like create 6 patrons in one turn. Even with one whirlwind, you can do a lot of stuff. But yeah, whenever you don't have charge, you just pass the turn and they just do AoE or remove it, and it's a huge hit. And after that, you're kind of like out of fuel, I feel.
Right. I found it a little funny that the card that was in the also released Quick Shot, like, is a direct counter to Grim Patron. If you just play Grim Patron onto the field, it's like, oh, Quick Shot it. All right, it's dead now.
True.
Yeah. And no one gets created. But yeah, any other thoughts on Grim Patron? I have faced against it once. I've never played it in my own deck. Billy, if you said you actually tried playing it.
I only played like 2 or 3 games. It didn't seem very exciting to me. I was more excited to play like a different card in the set, which I'm sure we'll get to in just a moment. But like I said, I had to give Grim Patron a go because Warrior is one of my favorite classes, and it just didn't feel very good. I don't know. Maybe it's gonna get better with like Axe Flinger and Revenge and stuff like that, but we have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I didn't see the deck being too strong either. Because it's kind of weird. Because in the beginning, you play a little control. You don't have a lot of stuff to drop, so you're kind of trying to draw, kind of like the Control Warrior. You're removing with your weapons and using your Acolyte to draw and doing those things. But then you kind of switch it to a more aggressive style during the mid game, and you try to get like a big combo with the patrons.
Yeah, it's really odd because of such a high mana cost at 5 mana. You're like, if you obviously don't want to play it out alone because it's just going to get killed at that stage of the game by something that does 3 or more damage. So you want to play it with something else, but unless you like have a Death Spite in your hand, which can deal damage to everything the same turn you play it, you're going to have to combo in turn 6 or 7 or 8, and by that time, like, it's a nice combo, but is it that much better than what Warriors got right now with stuff like Worgen?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it can get to a point where you're too far behind and the combo doesn't actually do much for you at that point.
It makes me wonder if like classes that can buff their whole board can do something more with this, like Druid.
Yeah, it's too bad that Warrior can't really heal its minions. This deck is kind of like wants to damage its minions. So Axe Flinger will actually make a big difference. That extra damage that the deck needs, a little more aggressiveness to use all your little powers that deal damage to your creatures. But then at the same time, you're kind of like cutting out the work for your opponent, right?
I feel like Warrior could have had, like, I think they already have Commanding Shout, but something in that vein that buffs the attack of all their creatures, like Savage Roar and Bloodlust, that might have been what Warrior needed to create that next, like, that aggro Warrior.
Yeah, that's true. They do have all those shouts. It's part of like the class in like the actual Warcraft where they can, buff stuff around them. So
exactly, and Warrior. Cool. Right now, all of Warrior's buffs are single target, which very much plays to like a combo or controlled single target. So it might make more of an aggro deck if they could, buff their board like Druid or Shaman. So
yeah, I agree with that.
We will see what comes of this card. But yeah, right now I'm not seeing a great use case for it, but I'm really hoping there is, because I just want to see this card played in tournaments all the time, because that's going to be fun.
I don't know if it's gonna make it to the tournaments, but we might see it in the ladder more often.
Exactly. I hope to. I've already seen it once, so that was fun. I mean, I destroyed it utterly, but here's hoping next time. On to the next card, which we're going to do the one that came from the Hunter Clash Challenge. That is Quick Shot, which is a 2-mana card. It deals, spell, by the way, common rarity, deals 3 damage. If your hand is empty, draw a card. Okay, so I'm going to go outright and say I don't like this hunter mechanic they're introducing with this set of when your hand is empty draw, because it inspires a weird style of play that leaves you with no options. I feel if it works and you're able to win by just top decking every turn, that's kind of a boring way to fight, to face against and play. And then if it doesn't, it's just you're constantly being encouraged to play cards suboptimally. So
Yeah.
what do you guys think of this?
I don't know. It's a weird mechanic because you usually don't find yourself like unloading your entire hand as a hunter, since you're usually trying to get a bunch of value from your hero power. But then again, this card is just like a dark bomb that is better if you top deck it, I guess.
Yeah, so I've heard a lot of people talk about this card and say that like it's a better dark bomb and blah 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 blah, and it should be a better dark bomb because theoretically Warlock's hero power is better than the Hunter hero power. So I don't know. Quick Shot is a card that everyone's talking about. It's very hard to pull off the if your hand is empty thing. I don't think you need to. I think you just need to use it as a dark bomb. Although I like the idea, I actually disagree with Bryan. I actually really like the mechanic of if your hand is empty, do X, whatever X is, right? Because in a deck where you're running, you need to be holding onto kill commands and unleash the hounds and stuff like that, you can't be running these type of cards because the effect is never going to be, it's never going to be active. So when you have effects like this, it disincentivizes those types of plays, which makes Hunter less annoying because they can't pull 10 damage out of nowhere.
But
which
I don't know, like if this stops Hunter from being as powerful, they're just not going to run it. The only alternative is if Face Hunter can just work even faster and dump even more and be even less interesting. Like I'm not sure how this can incentivize a more thoughtful style of play, which is typically what I enjoy from Hearthstone.
I actually agree with Billy. I think he's right in the sense that this card and the other beast that is getting introduced is a step into taking Hunter in a different direction, because these cards don't really work well with the plan of Face Hunter or even mid-range Hunter. I don't know, they just feel like you wouldn't want to take out anything that is already in this decks to replace it with these. But on the other hand, maybe a Hunter with a different style. I know like they were trying to do like a more control-y Hunter with the other card that they have, the little goblin, the 3/3 that you can redirect
Sniper.
your hero power. Maybe Quick Shot is something like that too, a little more control-y kind of card that also gives you an edge in the late game if it's the only thing you have.
I mean, that's an interesting way to look at it, not as something that encourages you to dump your hand, but encourages you to control the board more. Hunter definitely has that problem of not being able to top deck very good cards. I know some people for a while were even running Deathwing to circumvent that, which is definitely an interesting way of doing it. But yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll have to see how this comes into play. I mean, it strikes me as basically saying hand dump, which is similar to what Zulak was doing for a while. And actually the primary reason I didn't like playing Zulak when I did is because I'm like a control player that always likes to have answers and options in my hand. I think it's why I've gravitated towards Warrior and Paladin a lot. So the idea of having a card that basically, to get its optimal value out of it, you want to get rid of stuff in your hand, to me is just like, no, that's not how you play card games. Bad games. Stop telling me to do bad things. But I see the arguments for it otherwise. Do either of you, I mean, do any of us really play Hunter? Do we think we're going to be trying to use this as much, or?
I mean, I definitely in Hunter every once in a while. It's a fun class to play, just very aggressive. Not definitely my preferred class, but I don't know. I would try using it.
I personally haven't played Hunter since that few weeks where I was playing Hunter like non-stop to finish off the Golden, and I had this card is certainly not a card that incentivizes me to go back. But like I said, I do like the card because it changes the style of Hunter.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I feel we still need more though to really be able to change a style, introduce a new type of deck.
These two cards
we'll
aren't
see
going
how
to, and by these two I mean the two cards that have the if your hand is empty text on it, certainly aren't going to spawn a new breed of Hunter, but it perhaps sets up a breed of Hunter to be spawned later on.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's a planning for the future.
What's the other one? Is it Core Hound? No, it's not Core
It's
Hound.
like Core Rager or something.
Core Rager, and
Core
it's
Rager,
not
yeah.
released yet, but that's what is it? A 4 mana cost?
It's a 4-cost 4/4.
Yeah, 4 mana,
that turns
4/4.
into a 7/7 if you have the effect trigger.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I want to point out that Quick Shot can be played without the effect, but I think a card like Core Rager cannot be played without the effect. I think a 4/4/4 is just too bad.
Yeah, I mean, Core Rager also just seems kind of like a terrible card to me, because if it can't be played without its effect, it's unlikely you'll be able to play it on turn 4 unless you have like the perfect hand
Exactly.
that empties itself.
Core Rager
Yeah.
And if you
is
top deck
not
it,
a good card with this text, even with this text.
right? And if you top deck it, it's like, oh, good, I got a 7/7, but I could have top decked Dr. Boom.
Yeah,
like at this point, saving the mana let me do my hero power, but that's it. Like saving the mana gave me nothing else, because by definition, I don't have any other card to play unless I have like one card in hand, top deck this, play that card, then play this. But it just, I don't know.
Maybe
it
we
seems
need
so iffy.
maybe we need some discard effects in Hunter, similar to the way that Doom Guard works and stuff like that.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, also keep in mind that stat-wise, it's not as good because it doesn't even pass the vanilla test, right? Like a Yeti is better just by itself, 4 mana, 4/5. But this card has the beast addition to it. It is a beast, and it is important to have that when you're playing Hunter.
Well, not necessarily, because
not saying-
cards
not
like
saying it's,
Houndmaster and Kill Command, which are the common cards that synergize with Beast, are cards that you want to be holding in your hand, which is anti-synergy with cards like Core Rager.
True, but then there's also other cards that haven't seen much of a spotlight that rely on the beast synergy, like, Call Pet.
Okay.
You know what's really sad to me about this, though, is that it just makes Starving Buzzard even less likely to be played in Hunter.
Oh yeah, well, the Starving Buzzard was buried deep.
Man, that was potentially the largest nerf they've ever given a
Gadget
card.
Sand and Leroy got nerfed, and meanwhile Hunter got a 3/2 for 5. Sorry, Hunter.
All right, moving on to the next card here. We are going to talk about Gang Up. This is a 2-cost rogue card, common rarity, a spell, and it reads, choose a minion, shuffle 3 copies of it into your deck.
Yes.
So I have seen this played once against me. It was a mill rogue who decided to play it on his Cold Light Oracle.
Yes. So I've been doing the same
Very
thing.
cool.
I'm a copycat, and by a copycat I mean we both happened to come up with the same idea with Gang Up. I looked at Gang Up and I heard people talk about it, and they were all like, I don't really know what this is used for, and I'm like, wait, no. Gang Up is a 2-cost win the game if you're a mill rogue. So like, if you've already decked out your opponent in your mill rogue, and you gang up like a Death Lord, now your Death Lord's just a 2/8 with taunt, because it doesn't pull anything from the fatigue, right? So I've won so many games because of Gang Up. I love Gang Up, and I love the animation of like casting Gang Up and then the 3 cards flowing into your deck. I don't know about you guys, but I'm in love with this card. The first time, before I had even put it into a deck, I ran into another person who was doing the gang up thing, and he gang upped Emperor. I forget how to pronounce the second part of his name.
Thracian.
And
Thracian.
I dealt with the first one, and then the next turn he played 2 of them. Not the next turn, sorry, the following turn after that. He played 2 of them. And
oh jeez,
just scary card, man. Gang Up is sweet. Obviously, that's like a dream scenario, which is hardly ever going to happen. But I think it's actually very effective in Mill Rogue, and I'm very excited that they're willing to design cards that incentivize more complicated plays, like mill plays. So
here's my broader question is, okay, it's viable in Mill Rogue, but is Mill Rogue viable? Because I faced a Mill Rogue. Partially, he was just playing it effectively. But it feels like Mill Rogue doesn't have the kind of control and stalling of a mage, so they're just letting you kill them quicker.
My thoughts on this are not yet. I think that...
Okay, that's what I thought.
Maybe next set or the set after that, Mill Rogue will be viable.
Yeah.
I think they're going to continue to add cards like Gang Up that have certain synergies with Mill Rogue, and I think Mill Rogue is going to be a top tier deck eventually. Not yet. Gang Up is a step in the right direction, and I'm happy about it.
It kind of surprises me how much, I mean, if this was their intention to use it for mill, like how many cards they put in the game for mill, because like Druid's GVG cards are also very mill centric.
Yes, I'm excited that they're willing to go into that direction. Dude, when mill rogue is a thing, go on Legend, boys. I love mill rogue. It's so much fun.
Are we gonna call it Millicle Rogue?
We can. Dude, gang up Leroy.
Very cool.
It's new Shadow Step.
The problem is right now, Mill Rogue is so weak in the mirror matchup because it's like, oh, thank you for giving me all of my damage cards.
Yeah,
Prepare to die very quickly. Granted, my sprint became.
I do love this card though. I think it's a really really fun card, especially when I was doing the challenge, and I used a gang up rogue for what's the name of the guy? Is it the Grim Guzzler, the one that summons the minions for you?
Yes.
Yeah, I was playing the Grim Guzzler, and he summons Ragnaros for me, and I just used Gang Up on Ragnaros, and I shuffled 3 of them into the deck, and the very next card that he summons is another Ragnaros, and then he summons a Sunwalker, so he cannot kill any of my Ragnaroses,
Right.
but they'll just wreaking havoc on him, and then I get another Gang Up, and I do it again on Ragnaros. I end up getting like 6 Ragnaros in that fight, and I thought it was like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, if this card was in something like Warrior, it would be insane, the potential of it, because like any deck that goes to that can get itself to go to fatigue, like the idea that you can like think of being in a fatigue match between Warrior and Priest and then playing this, it's just like whatever the powerful creature of the day on the field goes into your deck 3 times.
Bryan.
It's a very interesting card because it like, I don't know, it has no immediate effect, but it kind of like makes your long game better, and it can break the rule of only having 2 cards in the deck.
It's similar
right?
to Thought Steal in that respect of just generating cards, which is very cool.
Bryan,
for like
Bryan
a
and
later
Andres,
advantage.
Yes,
I feel like neither of you understand. It can be in Warrior. Nefarian, yo.
Oh,
Oh, that's
just
true.
run into
That is
Nefarian
true.
Warrior and you're good to
Yeah.
go. That is an excellent point.
You can gang up all the Nefarians.
All right, but Gang Up is one of those cards that because I don't think Mill Rogue is viable right now, I'm not like super excited about it in terms of playing competitively, but it's another one of those cards that I love the idea of, and I think it's just interesting. Like, it's not just another minion that does
it's
something.
interesting. Even maybe like one copy, like trying like an oil rogue, and like doing it on a Drake or an
I don't
SI
think so.
agent.
That's too.
That deck draws a lot
That's
of
too
cards.
slow.
Like
How many
it's,
times have you played?
it's
how many
common to
times
go
have you
to
gone
mill.
to make a play in oil, and you'd be like, I don't have the mana for that. Now you want another card in your deck, which majority of the time doesn't work, and it's a 2 cost. Like, it's something.
I kind of disagree with you in that actually the Oil Rogue, if you can get an early minion out, you kind of have dead turns during the beginning where you're just daggering and
Yeah,
waiting.
I agree. I agree with. I was about to say that too. Like that deck sometimes has a lot of dead turns.
You guys do play a more minion-centric oil rogue than the norm, so I don't know.
I could see it fitting in. I'm not sure, but I'd love to try it, see what happens.
I'm not saying it would be like the best card, but I would like to try it out. Just I don't know. Like sometimes that deck draws a lot of cards, and maybe having like extra of that, like you can do it on a Violet Teacher and have a bigger chance of drawing her too. Or I don't know. You can play a lot of like strategic games with this card.
What I also like about this card is that you can target your opponent's minions.
I was literally
which
saying that.
Really,
Yes.
really like. That's like if
Oh,
your
you can do
opponent,
that?
Yeah, if your opponent plays like if you're Milrogue, like imagine Milrogue mirror matchup. That's crazy. Like, I wanted that to be a thing so
So
bad.
you choose your opponent's minion and you shuffle 3 of them into your
Yes.
deck.
Yeah, it specifically reads choose
my
a
God,
minion.
that is so
It doesn't
cool.
Yeah,
say
it's just like
friendly.
Faceless Manipulator in that respect, and that it also plays against, like in Arena, this card could be really good because, it adapts to whatever's out there.
Yeah. Or, I don't know, there's so many uses for it because it can be so strategic. If your opponent plays something that you know is amazing against them, you could play it on
Right.
it for a chance at getting it. And, like, 3 copies gives you a pretty big chance of, like, drawing one of them.
Yeah, especially
Indeed.
if you're a little bit later in the game, maybe like 15 cards into your deck, throw 3 cards into
Yeah,
that deck.
exactly.
There's a
Right.
really high % chance you draw that card.
And also in Arena, like, you have so many cards you don't like, you could use it to target the few cards you do really like and kind of, buff your deck for, like, the direction you want it to go in. Which is, because in Arena, you're not happy to draw every single one of your cards, so any chance to manipulate what your deck composition is a very nice boon.
Yeah, I really like this card. I don't think it's might be like a card that is gonna make a big competitive splash, but it's one of those cards that over time leads itself to a lot of creative uses.
Indeed.
And it's gonna be interesting to see what comes out.
I totally agree. We got 3 cards left here. We'll go a little bit quicker on these since I am starting to run out of time. So let's go ahead and do the Clash Challenge for Mage, Dragon's Breath. This is a 5-cost spell. It is common rarity, and it reads, deal 4 damage, period. Costs 1 less for each minion that died this turn. Or, as I like to say...
Let's move on.
What?
I said garbage,
You don't want
let's
to
move
talk about
on.
it?
I don't know, it's just... This card is bad. Very, very bad.
I don't know, Billy. I want to kind of offer a differing opinion here and say garbage. Let's move on. Andres, do you have actually anything else to say about this card?
Okay. I'm gonna be devil's advocate here.
So like, okay, no. In all honesty,
the card is not necessarily bad. It's just not unnecessary for the type of mages that we have right now.
All right. So here's my issue with Dragon's Breath. Right. So like, an amazing, like, the dream is that you cast it for 0, right? Even a 0 mana deal 4 damage spell is not amazing. Like, it's good. It's not amazing. And like, to make this card playable, you need to get it down to 3 or even 2. Which, like, I don't know, that's still very, like, I got Frostbolt in my deck. I don't have to trade for my Frostbolt to be playable.
I think, honestly, my favorite use of it is, like, your opponent has a good board in Arena or something. You Flame Strike, a bunch of them die, and then you Dragon's Breath the one powerful creature they had.
Okay, like, in Arena. But, like, that's very rare gonna happen. Like, maybe one of this in Freeze Mage for after your Blizzard or Flame Strike. But even still, that's, like, very rare that that's gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, let's also keep in mind that the other mage card that is coming out, synergizes really, really good with spells, and that card is actually really powerful in my opinion. The 2/4 that every time you cast a spell, you deal 2 random damage.
Oh right, yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see, because maybe a deck might turn around that card that likes using a lot of spells.
Well, I mean, yeah, I agree.
I don't
like
think Dragon's Breath makes the cut for that deck, though. Like,
no, I mean,
you're already gonna be running cards like, maybe like I think Arcane Missiles makes it into that deck before Dragon's Breath does. Arcane Missiles is like a very, that's not a great card.
Well, the thing about Dragon's Breath, I feel, is like a tempo card, right? You want to play like a board-centric kind of deck, and you want to be able to trade up, so you need minions to trade up. Although Mage is not that good at, creating a lot of minions that it can trade. Maybe like a Mech Mage, where you have to trade your own minions. It does have Mirror Image. Maybe that can help. I don't know.
As of right now, I don't think it's like... It may have the same thing as like Quick Shot in my the opinion I had on Quick Shot. Maybe this will just spawn a different type of mage sometime in the future. But as of right now, I think Dragon's Breath is unplayably bad.
I can see actually it reminds me of Magic when Magic just introduces a mechanic they never really end up using much again. I can see this cost 1 less for each minion that died this turn just being something like in Limited you could play it in something like Arena. But I think a lot of the cards in this set it might just kind of fall from the wayside because they don't end up. It's not like its own keyword, so they might not end up really supporting that mechanic in future sets.
Yeah.
I like that you keep saying in
those
Arena. I think
happen.
this card is playable in Arena, maybe. But even, that's it, I think.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and move on to the last non-legendary card of this wing. It is a Priest card. It is a 2-cost spell. It is called Resurrect. And it is a rare rarity, that's hard to say, and reads, summon a random friendly minion that died this game.
I like it.
I love this card, but it's just not very good. Like, okay, so if you play Resurrect, your deck cannot have Northshire Clerics in it, which may not seem like a big deal, but Northshire Clerics draws a ton of cards. And then also you can't run Light of Naru, which has become a pretty core priest card because that summons in a Light Warden, and then that becomes a part of your resurrection cycle. Also you have, you can't run things like Thought Steal because you might steal a bad minion from your opponent, so now that would be a bad thing if you do like Resurrect. Also, you can't Shadow Madness, you can't Cabal, anything that involves stealing, which is one of Priest's like big things. You can't really do at this point because now Resurrect doesn't hit it. It doesn't work in the Twilight Whelp deck because then you can get Twilight Whelp, and then that's bad because that comes in as a 2/1. You have to build your deck from pretty much the only minions you're running a 4 cost or more, or maybe even 3 cost or more to make Resurrect good. At which point you're making a bad Priest deck. So I don't think
it is a little bit funny that the 2 Priest cards are like direct opposites in terms of being able to run them with each other. Like,
yeah, right. So, like, in my opinion, I think it could fall underneath the same category as Quick Shot, which is maybe in the future, Priest could spawn a new archetype and it could run Resurrect. But as of right now, this is just like a garbage card, in my opinion. I think that like I said, you could build a specific deck that makes Resurrect good, but then you're making your deck suboptimal.
Right. I mean, to me, it reminds me a lot of Reincarnate from Next Rammus, where it was a very exciting 2-cost spell, and then it's like, oh wait, I actually have to put cards in to support this. And then it gives you pause. What do you think, Andres? Because I know you were more excited for this card than Billy was.
I like the card. I think it's appropriately costed. At 2 mana, it doesn't make it a liability. Like, as a priest, you're going to have so many turns where you just have 2 spare mana that you just don't have how to spend. And even if you have played smaller minions, let's say a Northshire Cleric, a Northshire Cleric is not a bad card. Like, it's not a card that is there for its stats, it's there for its utility. And getting it back might actually be very beneficial at some point in the mid-game if you're trying to get some cards back.
I want to...
and then you also have the chance of resurrecting Injure Blade Master and bringing it as a 4/7. You also have a chance to resurrect a Belcher, or was a 3/4?
Oh, Dark Cultist.
Dark Cultist, which is also pretty good. And at that point, you've gotten more value for the card, right? If you summon anything as 2 mana, you pay for the card. If you summon anything that's more, then you gain value from it.
Okay, so I get that is a thing, right? Like, even if you get the Northshire Cleric, it's not a huge deal, right? But if you're trying to put it in the like any current priest that runs all these cards you're talking about, you need to find room for it. And there is so many cards in priest that are like amazing, and it's very hard to find room for them. Now you have to find room for this 2-cost card that is sometimes good. Like, think about it. Like, you already need to find room. Well, some decks are running like Valen's Chosen and Deathlord and stuff like that. And
that's what I was about to say. Like, we've already seen some new priest decks that are a little more minion centric, and they try to buff their minions, which in one of those decks, like Resurrect, might not be as bad of a card because they also have a limited stock of minions, right?
Okay.
Yeah, this is one of those. To me, I think it's like tested and see. I think it's like too unpredictable to see how it could work, but
I don't think it's gonna be like a game-changing card. It's not gonna make a huge splash, but I think in the right decks, you can find a lot of utility for this card, and you could have some cool plays with it.
Well, you know what is going to be a game-changing card? The last card from the set. Yeah, nice segue, I know.
I mean, this guy needs no introduction. It's basically the most OP card that's been introduced in Hearthstone in a while.
And that'll wrap up our discussion. No, really.
The OP seems like... I think this card is good. I don't think this card is OP. I think this... okay, so... Everyone's been talking about how it should be running everything that's not aggro, and I'm
going to go ahead and introduce the card, just for people who don't know what it is.
Okay, right. Sorry. I thought... It's a huge card. Like, everyone should know this card. But anyhow, go on.
Exactly. Everyone should, but there might even be people who aren't even playing this set and are thinking to get back into the game. So for people who want to know, this is Emperor Thorsan.
Nice introduction.
That should be how you pronounce it. It is a 6...
I like it.
It is a legendary minion, the only legendary for this wing, because there's 1 legendary per wing. It is a 6-cost card. It is 5 attack and 5 health, and it reads, at the end of your turn, reduce the cost of cards in your hand by 1. It is really nice that does not say at the beginning of your turn, and if they nerf it, that is what they will do, and I really hope they don't. But Billy, you were saying.
No nerfing. So... Well, everyone on the internet and their mothers have all been claiming that this card should be run in everything that's not aggro, and I severely disagree with that. I've been playing around with it in stuff like Paladin and that doesn't really seem very good. I just seem to play it and then, oh, okay, now I have a 2-cost Aldor Peacekeeper, a 1-cost Equality, and like a 3-cost Consecrate.
No, what you do is you play it
turn...
and you have a 7-cost Tyrion.
Okay, great. But that's the dream, right? So
Yes.
A lot of the time it seems to hit nothingness, and a lot of the time after playing Emperor, I'll play like 2 cards the next turn and I'll have 2 mana left over, and I'll be like, wait a minute, even if I didn't play Emperor next turn, this play would have been the exact same. I feel like Emperor doesn't really get a huge, like, I mean, it gets value, right? But it's like not as OP as people have been claiming. However, this card has been doing some serious work in an OTK Warrior deck that I have.
I was about to ask you if that could work in it. It seems amazing.
So, this card actually sets up so many combos.
So now you need a gold Emperor Tharson.
I do. I'm actually working on that. Anywho, so this Warrior OTK deck, for people that don't know, on turn 10 it can do 32 damage, which is like insane, obviously. The only class that it doesn't kill in one turn is Warrior, and that's because Warrior is gross. But Emperor, that usually takes up 10 mana. But if you Emperor on turn 7, you can now do this on turn 8, which means you can kill Hunter faster, which is like its worst matchup. So like, I don't know, this Emperor card opens up a lot of combo decks. For instance, people have been running Freeze Mage with Malagos now, because if you play Emperor and now all of a sudden you hit Malagos or you hit a Frostbolt or something, now you have a 10 mana combo that does 8 damage. For instance, last night I managed to pull off Emperor and then following turn Malagos, Frostbolt, Ice Lance, which for people that don't know, that is a whopping, hold on, doing math in my head, 34 damage, I think. It's a lot of damage.
Nice, that's pretty cool.
So, I think Emperor is best in combo decks rather than control decks, and everyone's been claiming that this card should be run in everything ever.
I agree that it should be run in pretty much any control deck. I think Paladin is an interesting example, because Paladin is a mid-range. So I think like Paladin is the kind of deck that's like teetering on whether or not to use this, just like it teeters on whether or not to use Lotheb and a lot of these other cards.
Just to be clear, the Paladin deck I'm running is control deck, not mid-range. It doesn't run like
Paladin.
Knife Jugglers and stuff.
Well, I think in that case, then I think running this card would be a great idea. Like, I could think of a lot of cards that could probably come out of Paladin to support this. I'm not saying it's like going to be game-changing for every single deck, but I do think it's close to a Lotheb and other things in that it's, if you're running a deck that will have maybe 4 or 5 cards in your hand by the time you play it, you're almost always going to get a lot of value out of it and confuse your opponent, because it's just like, okay, suddenly I can't, like Druid, like now I can't count when they have combo effectively at all, because how many cards in combo did they just get a discount on? The thing I've been enjoying running it in
You're completely
a lot
right.
is I have been running like a Miracle Oil Rogue hybrid deck that runs like Gadgets and Auctioneers, and as well as some oil and a couple, or I think a single sprint and that sort of thing. And that's just been insanely fun. I haven't done a lot of tweaking. I just kind of threw it out from scratch from other things I've seen from Rogue in the past. And I never played Miracle Rogue really back in its heyday. But this card is incredibly fun in that deck, because I'll just have this hand full of different options. Then I'll play Emperor out, and suddenly all of my options are just even crazier than normal. He also baits a lot of...
Yeah, I can see that card baiting.
Yeah, so he baits out a lot of removal, so I can like play him, then the next turn play Gadget Zan and have all these spells to play, and suddenly draw up my hand and do a ton of like effects to the board. So it has been an exceedingly fun deck to play, and he just slides right into it and adds like, sets up even crazier turns with that kind of miracle style.
Yeah, like I said, I think that he's definitely include, like he's one of the cards you can put in control, but I don't think he's an auto include. Like everyone's been claiming that he is an auto include in every deck that's not aggro, and I don't think that's the case.
I think the reason people say that is because this is just like an A+ card, right? Like you look at this card and stat-wise is amazing. 5/5 is like the perfect ratio. Is hard to remove. You usually have to use 2 or more cards and waste your entire turn trying to get rid of a 5/5. And the effect is amazing. And you're right. Like it's not like the effect is gonna come in handy every time. As it gets better, the bigger your hand is, and the more costly the cards in your hand are. It doesn't work as well with like you said, like a Paladin deck where you have like maybe smaller minions, like maybe like a mini bot or like an Alder Peacekeeper that doesn't get as much benefit from it. But having said that, out of the entire set, this is probably the best, if not like the second best that's coming out.
Yeah, you're completely right, but everyone's been calling like OP and stuff, and the reason why I take this strong of a stance on it is because I'm scared of nerfs. You know, we've had so many nerfs in the past that like I don't want Emperor to all of a sudden be a 7-cost card with that reads at the start instead of the end of your turn. Like I desperately don't want to see this card nerfed, and everyone's been shouting OP, 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 and they did the same thing for Dr. Boom, and everyone's calling down about Dr. Boom.
Well, now the attention is on this guy. I don't think they're gonna nerf this guy. I'm very glad they added a card like this. It opens up a lot of possibilities, but definitely from this point on, you know, your 5th turn, you're gonna have to really be on the lookout and kind of like play around this guy. You gotta have to keep in mind this.
All right, I think you guys are actually forgetting though his hero power of dealing 30 damage. That seems a little OP to me.
Oh, that is very OP actually.
Death Rattle summon Emperor.
Yeah, I don't know why everyone's quite so excited about the cost of cards thing when, you know, hello.
He can deal 30 damage to your
play
face.
Every turn.
Well, his wife has to die first, and his wife's not in the game, so his wife can never die.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
So, can't ever
does that mean you always have access to your hero power?
No. You never have access to your hero power. Can't be possible.
No, because his wife's the one that's stopping him.
Yeah.
Without her, he can always use it.
Oh. Well, damn.
Yeah.
Emperor is OP. I changed my mind. This card is OP. It deals 30 damage.
I love his
right,
flavor text that says his second biggest regret is enslaving his people and giving up all his rights to a Fire Lord. Because his first regret was, you know, his wife, because he can't use his old power.
Nice. Nice. That's funny flavor text. I like that.
Yeah.
That is pretty darn good. All right, that should actually do it for this episode. That was good discussions. I really look forward to the next wing.
Quote that with good discussions.
Yep. Enjoy myself. Always a pleasure to be here with you guys.
I have good grammars, Billy. What is your problem?
Good grammars all the way through.
Exactly. And yes, Andres, it was a pleasure having you as well. Billy, it was pretty good having you. I don't know. We might have to rethink this whole thing.
Okay. All right. I'll just go back to playing WoW and Hearthstone. And, yeah, I'll do that.
And Heroes.
And Heroes, that one. I was trying to remember the name, and then I, like, drifted off. The other one.
And StarCraft when it comes out. And maybe a non-Blizzard game at some point. We'll see.
Who knows?
So this is the part of the show where everyone gets to plug other stuff they do. Andres, we will start with you.
Sure, you guys can find me on Twitter at IplaiGames.
You're going to need to do the spelling for that, because it's not exactly traditional.
That is true. You spell it I play with an I in the beginning and an I at the end. IplaiGames.
Yes. Exactly. So it's IPLAI rather than PLAY.
That's right. You said it way better than I did.
No worries. And you also do music stuff. So if people want to check out your mixes and stuff, is there like a SoundCloud they can go to or whatnot?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to SoundCloud and go to soundcloud.com/massive, MASSEVE, and you can find all the stuff that I do. We constantly upload new content, so make sure you guys check it out.
Yeah, there's also an amazing Hearthstone remix, which should be pretty relevant to the interests of our audience. And Billy, probably has it playing right now, because I've never, been a bigger fan of a piece of music.
Dude, I love that song. That's so great. Every day.
Yep.
It's legitimately on my playlist of like 300 songs over here. So
nice. I'm glad I could make it there.
Exactly. You rank with Lindsey Sterling, my friend.
You do. Lindsey Sterling's is also on this playlist.
Of course.
I feel honored.
Now, if only Lindsey Sterling would do a Hearthstone remix, we need to make this happen. That would be pretty
Spam
amazing.
Twitter. Everyone go. Quick, Lindsey Sterling.
Speaking of Twitter, Billy, where can people find you?
I am at BB... No, not BB. At Brawly on Twitter. That's just my in-game name, Brawly, with a B at the front, because somebody took the name Brawly on Twitter, because they are rude. And my YouTube channel is youtube.com/BrawlyHS, I believe. However, I'm not really going to be focusing on that YouTube channel. It's mainly going to be on the Hearthaholics channel, which we don't have a URL for, so I can't get that out. But if you're watching this on the podcast, you can probably look up Hearthaholics. on YouTube, and you'll find our YouTube channel, and I'll have videos up there very soon.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what we can get created for that. But right now, as we're recording this, we still have like all of the administrative work to get done in terms of getting our feed and our logo and everything up there. So we don't have it all sorted out yet.
Absolutely.
So like Twitter account and that sort of stuff, we'll have information on that later. But not as of this episode. You can find me personally on Twitter at Lord Meldorr. That is LordMeldorr. And you can also find me. I run a podcast and other internet media network with my brother at walesorwales.com. So you can find a bunch of other podcasts and projects I'm involved with on there. And that should do it for all the plugs at the end. Thank you guys again for till we have a really snazzy catchphrase. I'm just going to leave everyone with this sound bit of advice. Play Hearthstone.
Let the hunt begin.